What is going on, everybody? Taylor here. Welcome back to the Lights on a Screen podcast. It has been quite a while since we've put out anything new. Had a lot of personal life events, the three of us going on. And I'm hoping at some point we will be able to get back to the three of us doing Lights on a Screen together. But for now, it's just going to be me. I apologize, folks. You are going to be stuck with just Taylor for these Lights on a Screen podcast episodes for now, but I hope that you will stick around with me as I talk movies and try to get back into this with you guys. I've missed you. And on this episode, we are going to be talking Thunderbolts. I was not expecting to come back into any sort of podcasting world or movie reviewing world in any way by starting out with Thunderbolts. But this is a movie I have now seen 5 times in the theaters. It's been out for like a week at this point, and I'm still planning on going back a few more times. I hope at least one more time so I can go see it in the true IMAX theater we have here in Arizona on the biggest screen possible. But for now, I would like to share my thoughts on the movie, why it has me excited about Marvel and the MCU for the first time in a very long time, as someone who has been a fan in the MCU space since Iron Man came out in 2008. So I'm really, really excited to get into this. I'm going to share some non spoilery thoughts to kick everything off, and then we'll dive into some spoiler territory. Just for those of you who haven't gotten around to seeing the film yet, or maybe don't want to dive into anything past some more general thoughts. But let's jump into it. I'm really excited to talk about it. So I guess I'll start out with a little bit of context of my experience with the MCU for those of you who maybe don't know. It's been a while since I've talked about MCU, anything very much on the internet and in any sort of review capacity on this channel. If you're watching on YouTube or on the podcast feed, if you're listening on Apple or Spotify. Um, so the MCU is a franchise, I suppose would be the right way to say it, that I've been invested in for a long time. I remember seeing Iron Man in theaters when it came out. I remember being really, really excited for the future possibilities going forward. I'm someone who very, very much loves the first three Captain America films. Those have been my favorites for a very long time. Captain America, the First Avenger, has always been a favorite of mine. I have a real soft spot for that movie, for the story they chose to tell, for that cast. I really just think it's such a beautiful film. And then when Winter Soldier being the follow up and really getting to explore Steve more as a character in this modern world, but then dealing with having to deal with the past trauma, with coming face to face with Bucky, but a Bucky that he doesn't know anymore and thought was gone. And then Civil War was just a great, um, I guess, pseudo Avengers movie, you could call it. And I was Team Cap all the way, still am. And I just had so much fun with that movie and that dynamic. I was obsessed with the first Avengers movie. I saw it like 7 times in theaters when it came out. I love the first Thor movie. I think Kenneth Branagh doing something very Shakespearean with it to set up those characters and set up that part of the Marvel universe was fantastic. And there's been a lot of movies that I have enjoyed in the MCU, and then quite a few that didn't work for me. I haven't been able to keep up with all of the TV shows at this point, unfortunately. I'm pretty bad with keeping up with television in general. It's something I have to work really hard to do, and if I'm not super interested right away, it's hard for me to lock in and keep up with it. I loved WandaVision, watched all of WandaVision, loved the first season of Loki, watched most of Falcon and Winter Soldier or Captain America Winter Soldier. Um, but I haven't had time to check out Moon Knight. I haven't watched Daredevil. I watched Hawkeye. Haven't gotten around to Miss Marvel. So there are some things that I just haven't had time to watch at this point. But I was kind of getting a little bit tired with the MCU, with just having so many movies and so many TV shows coming out at the same time. while also having other movies I was really interested in trying to ca- catch up with and check out, and just became kind of too much for me, especially when it was kind of a hit or miss. It was a 50-50 where I would go in and I would enjoy maybe half of the movies they were putting out. So Thunderbolts, I wasn't really sure what to expect when it was announced. I Part of me was excited because I love Florence Pugh. I think she's one of the best actresses of her generation, and just one of the best working actresses at the moment. And I really enjoyed the Black Widow movie. I thought she was fantastic in it as well. So it was really exciting to have Yelena be a front and center in a film. That's really exciting. I've as a huge Captain America fan, Bucky has always been one of my favorite characters. So seeing Bucky back again in a film is always a way to get me interested. Um, and I really have been a fan of Lewis Pullman's work for a while. So when it was announced that he was going to step into the role of Bob and take over when Steven Yeun had to drop out of the project, it had me even more intrigued because he's someone that I've really been hoping to see get get more work. Honestly, he was so fun in his kind of limited role in Top Gun Maverick. He's fantastic in Bad Times at the El Royale. If you guys haven't seen it, I cannot recommend it enough. You also have his now co-star in the MCU, Chris Hemsworth, is in the film, as well as a huge kind of star-studded cast. So the cast really did have me intrigued, but as someone who just wasn't excited for new Marvel releases the way that I used to be, um, I just wasn't hyped. Um, and then it got to like the week before release, and people were saying great things about it, and good reviews were coming out. And then I actually sat down and watched some of the trailers because I hadn't really been doing that. And it got me really, really interested, especially around the time people were kind of poking fun at the, A24 kind of trailer that they released, where it was like the production designers and the director and the writers and the people working on this film have all done A24 projects, and kind of using that as a way to say, hey, maybe this is a little something different than what we've been giving you recently or in the past. And I think it was a really interesting way to even just get people talking about the film. So I went into the movie not really knowing what to expect, other than the fact that a lot of people who had gotten to see early screenings um, were saying really great things about it. So I went in more optimistic than I have for a Marvel project in a while, and I was completely blown away. I am so incredibly thankful for whatever cosmic circumstances unfolded that led to us getting Florence Pugh and Lewis Pullman together in this film. I think in a array of fantastic performances and character work in this film, they are absolutely the two standouts. I think what Florence Pugh is able to explore and lend to Yelena in her portrayal is just so grounded and human and interesting, and gives us so much more depth than we were ever allowed to really be given with Natasha. I would have loved to see a similar kind of opportunity given to Scarlett Johansson. Unfortunately, that's not the kind of Marvel system we were operating in when she was actively playing the role. So it's really cool to get to see um, a female character be centered in that way and really, really get to do that, because this is really her movie, um, where you just have it. It's almost like a Captain America Civil War situation, except spoiler alert, this one does end up being called The Avengers by the end of it. So technically it is an Avengers film, but it kind of is that thing where, Captain America Civil War is a Captain America movie. And this really, for all intents and purposes, is a Yelena movie, but it is also a great ensemble piece. And I love that. I was not familiar with the character of Robert Reynolds or Bob or the Sentry coming into this film. And I didn't really want to do any research into it. I kind of wanted to let myself go into it blind, and seeing what they had to offer with the character. And I was completely blown away. I think the writing of the character was really smart. I think that they really did a great idea. I think they really had a great idea. of kind of what they wanted the character arc in this film to look like and how they wanted to introduce an audience to this character, but also give enough to the people who do know who this character is that you recognize the character, you kind of get an understanding of at what point we're interacting with this character in the lore you might already know about him. Um, and I just think that Lewis was the perfect choice to play this role. He is so he gives the role such humanity. Um, you can see every emotion that crosses his face. He's so open as an actor, and the back and forth we get between him and Florence Pugh in particular is just, it feels like you're watching two of the greats, and they're both so young and so, new and young into their careers still in the grand scheme of things. And it just feels like watching something kind of monumental happening when they're on screen together, which some people might not take seriously because it is a Marvel movie, and a lot of people don't really take that seriously, even when there is brilliant writing or directing or acting happening. And we're really seeing that throughout the film with those two in particular, which is so refreshing and so great to see. And I will get more into that when we get into kind of spoiler territory, but those two are absolutely the standouts for me. They had immediate, palpable chemistry, and it was just wonderful to feel like you're watching two actors who really understand the moments that they're in, that they're sharing together, really have a deep understanding of their characters, um, and just make it seem so effortless to really crack themselves open and show us who those characters are, which is again super exciting. Um, I also want to say that the rest of the cast, great. I think another particular standout for me was Wyatt Russell. I think a lesser actor would make U.S. Agent even more unlikable. I don't know if that's the right way to say it because I don't particularly find John Walker an unlikable character. He's obviously done terrible things, and he's not a good person, and his morals are all over the place, which is why he gets thrown in as part of this team. They've all done bad things. I think he is an interesting character, and I think he's more interesting because Wyatt Russell, um, again, humanizes him, makes him feel grounded, makes him feel real. You're watching this performance unfold on screen, and you're watching the really complicated emotions on his face, and you're uh, getting to watch him peel back the layers of, the kind of front that he puts up in certain situations, and the way he kind of allows himself to be a punching bag and kind of beats himself up, and the defense mechanisms he uses with other people. And it's just, again, I love that we have an actor of that kind of caliber stepping into this role. Um, Again, Sebastian Stan, I'm always excited to see him in a Marvel project, so it's great to see him back again. I love that he's been able to balance coming back to these Marvel movies and playing this character that we've loved for so long, as one of the two actors who's been in every single phase of the MCU we've had so far, him and Tom Hiddleston. I think there's a reason for that, and I think there's a reason that um, people just want to see him come back again, and it's really cool that he did just get to do A Different Man and The Apprentice, and he was able to do those kind of films that really mean a lot to him, and he was able to do some big awards runs, very deservedly so. But then he's still able to come back and give us this character that I do think has a lot of depth, largely due to him and his acting abilities and how much he cares about the character. And from what we heard, how many questions he asks on set, and how invested he is in the scripts that he gets. So I really love that. It's always great to see him, and even though he's not the main character here, and does kind of get sidelined a little bit, I think he serves his purpose and he does it well. And he doesn't feel wasted by any means. I think he's a great kind of mentor, I guess you could say, for this team, kind of helping to guide them and let them know that he's been there. And there's that scene in the trailer where he says, "I've been where you are." The past doesn't go away, but you can choose to do something about it. And it's really great to have have that character who's been through it, who knows that very intimately, and is able to kind of offer that guidance and kind of get a found family kind of moment by adopting this very, very interesting crew of people. It's really great to see that we're going to have the Avengers Tower back at it again. It was called the Watchtower in the film, I believe. Don't know if it's going to be called the New Avengers Tower or what we're going to get from that going forward, but it's great to see that it's going to be in use again. I've already seen Avengers Tower fix are going to be back, and we love that. This movie I've seen has reignited so much 2012-esque era Avengers fan fiction hype, and I'm so excited that the fandom seems to be excited again. It's just something I think everyone's realizing we haven't felt in a long time, particularly from the creative side of things. The people who put their time into writing fan fiction or making fan art or doing big breakdown videos or fan theories or whatever it might be. I feel like there's just been this spark that's kind of come back after people have seen this movie. And it makes me so, so happy to see that. It's just so great to see people so inspired by art to then make their own art. So I love that. That might be one of my favorite things about this movie, actually. Um, so I really love that without going into spoilers, because I'll just touch on a couple more things and then we can really go into spoilers. But I think the cast in general had great chemistry. You could tell they had so much fun filming together. Um, and I'm really hoping that Doomsday and Secret Wars isn't kind of the end of what we get to see from these characters. I am hoping that even if it doesn't come, until after we get Doomsday and Secret Wars, I do hope we get another Thunderbolts or New Avengers or whatever you want to call it movie where we get to see them as a team because they just have such great chemistry. The characters are so interesting. The team dynamic that they get to set up with this movie is so fascinating, and the potential of what could really be explored there, especially character development wise, is really, really cool. So I'm hoping that they get to stick around for a little bit in the MCU because it would be a really big shame to waste this stellar cast, the incredible chemistry they have, and the super fascinating, like I said, characters that they are. They're not your kind of A team, A list Marvel characters. But I think one of the things Marvel, the MCU, the cinematic division has done really well is take those characters that weren't really front and center for people and have turned them into characters we care about so much. Like people love the Guardians of the Galaxy movies as they should, but those, making a Guardians of the Galaxy movie was never a guaranteed hit for Marvel. Most people didn't even had no idea what was happening when that movie was announced. So I'm hoping we get to see more of these guys together in the future, and that Doomsday and or Secret Wars isn't just kind of like the end of that. But we'll get into that later. So, again, I want to say that without getting too much into it, I really appreciated that we got a film that was so much of a character piece in a way that Marvel isn't usually able to give us. There's a lot of cool fight choreography, and the stunt work is top tier, like it always is, like we've come to expect here. There's a lot of focus on mental health. There's an exploration of confronting inner demons and past decisions and regrets, and realizing that struggling with stuff like that doesn't mean you have to be alone, doesn't mean you have to isolate yourself. Um, and it doesn't mean that your life is over, which is such a powerful thing to explore it in film in general, but in a movie like this, it's kind of incredible, actually. It's also really refreshing to see a superhero movie, big budget superhero movie specifically, that you can tell was filmed on location, had real tangible sets and props and practical effects whenever it was possible for them to do it. Jake, the director, released a couple different clips of behind the scenes footage of them filming as much in camera as possible. You see the stunt work happening, and you see them on sets and on locations and with real tangible things around them. Like the amount of behind the scenes photos and videos we've gotten of the cast and the crew, and I don't think I've seen one video or still released from any of the sets or locations that have blue screen or green screen. Um, and I'm sure there was a little bit of it somewhere, but usually with Marvel movies, a lot of the behind the scenes videos or stills, they just have like you just kind of expect you've gotten used to seeing blue screen or green screen in the background of them. And that just was so overwhelmingly not the case here. And you can tell, you can feel it when you watch the movie that it's real and they're interacting with real things around them. And it just makes it feel an already grounded movie feel that much more real, which is super, super exciting, especially for the tone and the vibe that this movie hits. Um, with that, I think I'm going to kind of end my non spoiler portion there. So, this is your official spoiler alert warning. Um, I want to kick off this spoiler section with just jumping into the big part of this movie, the big thing. Going into this, I didn't know anything about Bob, Sentry, the Void, that character. Um, I just didn't know anything at all. And I really, really enjoyed the way that different facets of the character were slowly revealed to us throughout the movie. There's so much potential for this character going forward. Um, and it's clear that Lewis Pullman understood and was invested in the depth of the character. And it was really a lot of fun seeing him take on this role and peel back all those layers and get to essentially play three different versions of the same character and really getting to see how his body language and his facial expressions and his voice, how he was able to differentiate those three different facets of the character and made them also interesting and also real. Um, and it's just an incredible performance. I think he's gonna kind of be the next Tom Hiddleston. He's gonna be the kind of the next Loki, where he's the quote unquote villain character, but he has so much depth to him and so much backstory, and he's so interesting, and he's played by such a phenomenal actor that fans are just gonna want him to stay around and they're gonna want the MCU to keep exploring his character, which I really hope they do because I really think he could be that. And I've been watching as many interviews of him as I can find talking about this character because I just find it so fascinating. And I've wanted to hear about his process and kind of his thoughts about taking on a character like this. And hearing him talk about the fact that he wants to stick around, he wants to explore so much more in this character, and really get to be a part of the MCU for as long as he can be, as long as they have a story for him. I just love that so much. And I think it's also a really exciting prospect that people might be discovering him as an actor in this role for the first time. And they might, go back and watch some of his previous work and really kind of get to jump on this train before it really, really takes off. Because I think he's got a really bright future in the MCU and just in general. So, telling you right now, jump on the Lewis Pullman train immediately right now if you're not already there. Um, I think I I'm trying to figure out, you know what, we're just gonna get into this. So I think for me, the biggest takeaway from this film is there's so much good humor in it. There's so much good team building. There's so much thought put into these group moments we get together where it's just these quiet but smartly written kind of expositional moments where you get to learn bits of the character and how they interact with each other and how they see each other just based on some conversations we get between them, whether that's when they're in the vault kind of talking to each other for the first time or in the Red Guardian's limo, or whether that's in the elevator shaft or in the back of kind of the moving truck or whether that's in Avengers Tower. or whether that's in the void or afterwards when they're back in the streets in New York. We just get these little moments, and there's not a lot of them, and they're not very long, but the dialogue is written so smart, in such a smart way, in a way that clearly the characters are understood and the dynamics are understood, and they make it so clear to the audience what those dynamics are, and who these characters are and where they are mentally. um it's just so good. It's just so good. It just feels amazing to feel like they want us to care about these characters, and they're giving us the opportunity and the reasons to care about these characters and be invested in them. um So I love that so very much. The idea that throughout the entire film, it's clearly so important that mental health is the focus, is the thing being talked about, because the film opens with Yelena standing at the top of the second tallest building in the world, talking about how there's something wrong with her, how she feels unfulfilled, how she feels empty, how she doesn't have purpose, how she's just kind of navigating life on autopilot. And that theme continues for all of the characters throughout the entire film. We see it when her and Bob are talking together alone in the hall in the vault, where he's just like, you guys would all be better off without me, and doesn't seem to care if he's gonna die down there. And she, says, "Hey, like, I know that feeling. I I know what the void, feels like." And they kind of have that conversation. And the fact they have it so early in the film, after just meeting each other, I think is such a great way to build a connection between those two characters that then we're gonna circle back to by the end of the film, a couple different times. So that's amazing. Um, and, when it gets to Bucky, calling out John Walker, saying, "You made your choices and your wife and your kid left you." And you see him and Yelena share a look, and you kind of see the look of resignation there and the look of understanding there, and you get to see, um, all these moments that just feel so real. It doesn't feel like it's ever being put upon, like they're, trying really hard to convince you that these characters have been through a lot and that they're mentally in a bad place. They don't need to convince you of that, because you can feel it in the performances, in the script, in the way that the story is laid out. And the concept of the void, and when you're pulled into it, just having it be this series of rooms where you just relive the kind of horrors and the traumas, uh and it's just not, it just feels like an inescapable place where you're just looped, um forever, essentially. And the fact that Yelena willingly walks into the void, is such a beautiful, beautiful, kind of horrifying, very emotional thing to watch the character do, to close her eyes and accept that she has no idea what's going to happen when she actually lets herself physically and mentally give into this void that she's been kind of feeling at the edges of her mind, and wondering if she should just let herself, jump into it because it might be easier. And then looking up at Void, at Bob, at Sentry, whatever you want to call him at the moment, and making the decision to go in and find him, because she believes that he's still in there and there's someone to save, despite what she might run into, in there, because she's seen part of it already. At the beginning of the film, she's had to relive part of what's going to be waiting for her in that void, and she chooses to go still. And I think that's such a powerful character choice. It's such a powerful visual. Um, and it's also a great way to give us a bit more insight into these characters and their past, getting to see, John Walker and, his family troubles, and getting to see, Val. and her past, when she's speaking to him, and getting to, see a couple more of the kind of rooms that Elena has to fight her way through. And I just think it's such an interesting, beautiful, um, just such a well done visual representation of what a person might feel or think about or see, what might be on their mind when they're depressed or anxious or, you know, living through trauma or dealing with past trauma. I just think it was such a brilliant visual representation of that, and having to face it and having to fight your way through it and decide if you're going to fight your way through it and find your way out of it. Um, and when she finds Bob and is able to convince him to go with her, that it's worth fighting to find his way out of, when he's ready to just sit there and just give up because he's found the best of all the worst rooms and he's resigned to it and he's ready to just stay there. Um, I'm making myself emotional talking about this. You probably hear it in my voice. But it's just such a beautiful thing to have Yelena step in and say, hey, it's worth it to fight our way out of here. You don't have to stay here. Like, come with me. I can help you. You're not alone. You think that you're alone. And I told you, back at the beginning of the movie that we're all alone and we're all always going to be alone. And that's not true. You know, I might not be able to fix everything for you, but having someone to talk to about this stuff, like, that's at least going to make it easier and we can go from there. And it's just really powerful, actually, to offer somebody that, to maybe give somebody that option when maybe they never knew it was there before or they never had somebody offer that to them. So that was really incredible. And then getting to see the rest of the Thunderbolt squad show up, pretty much without hesitation, which I also love. They never um, hesitated to go into the void to go after them, other than the fact that Bucky just wasn't sure if it was the best way to save them. It was never an argument or a discussion between the group if they were worth saving or if they cared about saving them, which again is such a massive, arc from the beginning of the film. But it's earned. It doesn't feel sudden. It feels earned. It feels like they've come to care about each other and want to look after each other. And so there was never a discussion of, are they worth saving? What's in it for me if we save them? It was, is this the best way to save them? And as soon as John Walker was like, hey, I saw this thing and I think Ghost might be right. I think this might be the way to save them. And they just don't hesitate. They show up and they're there for them and they're ready to help pull them out of the void. And again, it's such a beautiful representation of, having those people around you that can help pull you out of that void, that even if it doesn't fix everything, they're going to be there for you to help you fight your way through it. And having the way, oh my gosh, I'm going to make myself cry. Having the way that they all get out of the void being, they have to tell Bob and convince Bob that giving in to the void and what the void wants and giving in to the anger, um, and just letting it overtake him is not the way. Then them fighting to free themselves so they can go and give him a group hug. They can physically wrap themselves around him and pull him back from that void and tell him he's not alone and make him feel that he's not alone. Um Guys, I can't do this. It's really incredible. It makes me emotional. All 5 times I've seen it, every time I talk about it, it really does make me emotional because it's just something I feel like a lot of us need to see right now. There are so many people dealing with mental health issues and struggles, and a lot of the time it can just feel like, with the world we're living in, that there's not a lot of hope and that there's not a lot you can do about it, and you kind of just have to give into it. And having a big budget blockbuster Marvel movie kind of wrapping its arms around you at the end and saying, no, Like, it's gonna be okay. You might have trauma and mental health issues and struggles and may have done bad things, but there are people who are gonna be there for you, and it's gonna be okay, and we're all gonna figure it out. And that's just such a strong thing to see, from someone who has had and does have a lot of mental health struggles. It was really such a powerful thing to see. Another thing I want to bring up before we kind of get into the post credit stuff, I really, really appreciated the costume design on this film and the visual choices, the aesthetic choices, particularly like all of the costume design was brilliant. Everyone looked amazing, but particularly differentiating Bob and the Sentry and the Void. I think they just made such smart decisions. Um, I think having Bob kind of be this unassuming guy who's in like hospital scrubs, and then we briefly get to see him in like a big baggy sweater and like these big baggy corduroy looking pants. It's such a great character choice there because he's kind of supposed to be this unassuming guy who's very not sure if he fits in anywhere. He's very self depreciating. He's kind of shrinking in on himself. And then you've got the Sentry who has this really insane skin tight, stereotypical, like leather, just full body suit situation going on, with the arm cuffs, and he's got the dyed hair, and he's got the whole look going on. And first of all, Lewis Pullman absolutely rocks that costume. It looks phenomenal on camera. He looks great in it, and the way that he plays that version of the character in that moment is so fantastic because you can tell as he's walking down the stairs, he's not fully confident in his body, in the suit. There are several different moments throughout the sequence where you can see him fiddling with his wrist cuffs, even after he fucking wrecks everybody. You can tell he's still fully not embracing the Sentry and his powers and the suit. He's not there yet, and I just love those kind of little details. I think the physicality was brilliant, the choreography, the stunts, amazing work. I think it was so cool to have the Thunderbolt team ready to go to battle, even though they'd seems like they'd kind of grown to like Bob, and they were obviously worried about him because they were like, "Yep, gonna go to New York. We're gonna save Bob. It's gonna be great." And then they get their asses absolutely handed to them almost immediately. And I love how quickly they kind of realize they're out of their depth and they scramble to kind of get the hell out of there as fast as they can. Ghost Ava picks up Bucky's arm that just got yeeted off. John Walker runs over and helps the Red Guardian helps Alexei pick Bucky up off the floor and like carry him to the elevator. I just love those little kind of moments of team dynamic where you see them, not even thinking about it, helping each other out before they scramble the hell out of there. Like I think those moments were just so well done. And again, it's hard for me to not think about how much I think Florence Pugh and Lewis Pullman and Wyatt Russell really did for the characters in this movie. I think the characters in this movie overall were very, very well written, but the performances are just really special, I think. Really, really special. And in particular, like I said, Florence Pugh and Lewis Pullman, they're such strong facial actors. You can see every emotion that they want to telegraph, that they want to portray, in their eyes, in the smallest little minute kind of facial expressions, in their body language. Um, they're both just so good, and getting to see them together was such a treat. And I need some director or writer out there to throw them a script to do some other project together because they're just so good. Um, I think really the last thing that I wanted to kind of touch on before I wrap this up there's probably like a million things I've forgotten to say at this point because there's just so much that I love about this movie. And I could probably talk for like hours and hours about it. But last thing I guess we will touch on is that the second post credit scene where we have a 14-month time jump, which I kind of hate personally. Like, as I was talking about earlier, I want like at least two more movies of this team together. I would have liked to get one more movie of them in kind of seeing them become a team over those 14 months before we jump right into Doomsday. And I'm hoping maybe like retroactively, like after Doomsday and Secret Wars come out, they'll go back and give us that movie of those 14 months, just so we get to see kind of the Avengers Tower character interactions and them kind of learning how to be a team and learning how to work together. That would be really, really cool. That's on my wish list. I'm kind of devastated we're probably not going to get it, but um, it was really cool to have a post credit scene that was directed by the Russos, which is kind of crazy that they all flew to London a couple weeks ago, like a couple weeks before the movie came out, to like do the post credit scene with the Russos in London, as they were kind of prepping to do Doomsday stuff. That's kind of crazy, but um, it really did tell us, a lot, I think, in a short amount of time about what the team dynamics kind of are. They have Sam Wilson and his group saying that they're the actual Avengers, so they're presenting us with the tension that we're going to get in Doomsday of two different groups of people thinking that they're the real Avengers and figuring that out, which is super interesting. Bucky kind of seemingly being the reluctant leader as Yelena learns how things work. It seems like he's almost mentoring her to kind of take over, because he's been there, done that, but I think he clearly wants her to kind of be the lead, as she should be, because I think she's amazing. Um, and then you've got poor Bob over in the corner, um, just kind of being a regular guy because from what he says in that post credit scene, he can't be the Sentry without also summoning the Void side of things. So in those 14 months, according to the post credit scene, they still haven't figured out how to do that, how he can be Sentry and not the Void, how he can control his powers, which again would be so interesting to see in another movie, to see like what they've tried or haven't tried, or like how that's kind of like all unfolded. But it is an interesting piece of information to give us going into Doomsday, where we kind of know at least vaguely where Bob's at. With He hasn't been the Sentry, he hasn't really figured out how that all works or how to like make it work. So at the very least, there's that. It was cool to have the ending of it be them seeing the Fantastic Four interdimensional ship coming into the galaxy, which we basically all kind of knew was going to happen. Just there was no real other way to make that happen, to have them be in Doomsday without that being the thing. And a lot of the theories going around about what the ending of the Fantastic Four First Steps movie is going to be, and how that's all kind of going to lead into Doomsday. But I won't get too much into that. But overall, guys, I had a lot of love for this movie. I definitely want to go see it again. I didn't even really get to like, because I'm trying not to just like talk and talk and talk for like hours and hours, but I didn't even get to bring up the score of this movie. Is fantastic. It's so good. Like, Marvel usually has really great scores, but Son Lux, they did such a great job. They really understood the tone and the vibe of the team and all the members, and really added such an atmosphere component. When a movie score is done well, it is its own character in the film, um, and not just something that's kind of inserted into the background. And this score added so much to this movie, in all the right places, in all the right moments. It gave us finally like a heroic sounding theme for Bucky instead of just the really well done and really awesome, but like super tragic themes that he usually gets in the scores. So that was really cool. The like the score around like the different Void and Sentry stuff is just like magic and masterful and incredible. Um and I also didn't even really get to talk about Jake, the director, and how much of a fantastic job he did with like nailing the tone and the vision, and really just shaping this movie into something really, really extraordinary. But I have a lot of love for this film. If anyone wants to jump on another podcast episode with me and talk about it, I'd be more than happy to do that. I would absolutely die to interview anyone involved in this film in any capacity and just talk about my love for it and do deep dives because I just think what they've managed to achieve here is so magnificent and everyone should be so proud of the work they did. Um, but yeah, if you guys have stuck around and have listened to this whole episode, thank you guys so much. I know it's been a while since I've sat down to do one of these, so I really appreciate you welcoming me back. And if you guys want to find me on social media, most of my movie related stuff will be on Letterboxd. Finally tailored on Letterboxd, finally tailored on Twitter. I will put those links down in the description. If you want to find me on social media, usually I'm at Finally Tailored on most things, but links will be in the description if you want to check that out. Thank you guys so, so much for all of your continued support, and we will see you next time.